This is Season 20, Episode 5.
Listening to Happy Jack's RPG podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Thank you for joining us. This is Season 20, Episode 5 of Happy Jack's RPG podcast.
Bye.
My name is Stu.
Hello, my name is Patrick.
Hi, my name is Michael.
I'm not Patrick or Michael. I'm just Stork.
Just Stork.
Here every night, here every week. Here I am. Same guy, same bad time, same stew channel.
Yes. We got new people here.
Yeah.
Who are you and what do you do that makes you famous?
I'm Patrick Thomas. I am the head storyteller of the Pillars of Salt LARP. We've been on one of the convention shows to talk a little bit about that, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. And
I am also one of the storytellers for the Pillars of Salt Vampire the Masquerade LARP, playing in the 20th anniversary style, and I'm excited to be here. I've been on this once before, and I have had one of my emails read by you guys.
Awesome.
So over the last few years now.
I remember it well. It was like you were writing about LARPs, right? You had some questions, comments about it.
Totally.
Yeah. Remember? Oh, it was great.
Glad to know that you got that crystal clear memory going.
Really remember it. Yeah.
I would hate it if you storked that one up.
In this episode, we'll be talking with Patrick and Michael about LARPs, and I've been their ear a little bit about how to run LARPs, because I'm sort of LARP curious.
Yeah.
Steven SoCal writes in about bookkeeping being fun. Drail88 sends some questions and recounts his game, and Wes sends us an update and treats us to a horror story. But first, February
of
some
time in February, there's a thing going on.
Orcon 2018.
It's always around Valentine's Day. Remember, this is when our wives.
I already booked my hotel. Yeah. I tried to register my games. It is February 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th, President's Day weekend at the Hilton LAX Hotel. Go to strategicon.net for information about that. And I already got my room. The kids demand to go again. This time I'm going to run a bunch of games for them. Be like kids' RPGs.
Yeah,
nice.
So.
That's nice.
At least it's not actually on Valentine's Day this year.
No, Valentine's Day is on the Wednesday before, it looks like.
Yes.
Now that I have my calendar up, I can see all these things.
There you go.
Yeah, it's always awkward when you come home with a bunch of game books and, oh, sweetie, I bought you Tunnels and Trolls. Happy Valentine's Day.
I bought you some dice.
Why is all my stuff on the lawn again?
And I also have a father-daughter dance on February 2nd.
There you go.
So it goes against a Girl Scout thing. Semi-formal. Hi. So,
really?
LARPs. Yeah. What?
Girl Scouts? I haven't heard about this.
Oh, you will.
Nice.
Well, who doesn't like cookies?
Right.
he has his own line now.
No. His daughter and my daughter are in
the same troop.
So, and I haven't heard about this until just now.
You'll be voluntold about it.
Yes, I think I will.
So I actually used to work for a radio station in Houston, and they hired me to DJ a father-daughter dance for the Girl Scouts.
Oh, really?
Back in, I guess this would be 2004, 2005. It was a lot of fun, but like the fathers did not want to go out onto the dance floor until I started like playing Beach Boys and some things that the fathers knew.
Right.
And then it's like, all right, Dad, you gotta get out there. And then finally the dads started participating a little more.
I figure I'm going to take my daughter to some swing dance classes.
There you go.
So take her to like an easy, just like a beginner class, so we can at least know a few steps, and then whenever they're playing something in 4/4 that has a moderate tempo to it, and just swing dance to it. So
there you go.
That's my plan. You and Danielle can come with us.
I don't know anything about it. I'm going to feign ignorance.
Okay.
We'll do the hustle.
Yeah.
Now, did you play any inappropriate music at the father-daughter dance?
No. I kept it. I was actually the station I worked at is let's say we say it's mouse adjacent.
Okay.
So very very kid friendly.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Go.
So no like Sir Mix-a-Lot. Or
No. I've karaoke'd that one a few times, but I've never would not play it at the father-daughter dance.
Well, you have better judgment than I would. If you'd like to email the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. It's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. Social medias, Twitters and Instagrams. happyjacksrpg, all one word. And you can always watch us live on Fridays, 8 p.m.
The
Pacific
social
time.
meteors, can you comment on the social meteors? No, come
I
on.
could try.
I don't want to make an ass story to myself.
You know, that lacks a little impact for me.
Ooh, nice, nice. I'm a creator of habit. I'm killing myself.
Can we come to the tail end of this and go on?
Yeah. Parasids? I don't know. I got nothing.
Well, just streaking through the night.
Right.
Shooting.
So anyway, LARPing. So tell our listeners, because you guys are not part of the Mind's Eye
Correct.
Right.
Over Dominion or whatever it's called, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're doing an independent.
Exactly.
Independent. Is it Kamerion, Sabat?
Wait a minute. There's a whole series of LARPs that are like not connected. Can we back up even one more step?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Please explain to me the structure of this LARPing thing for Vampire.
Okay. So there are multiple groups that have international games where every game is interconnected. And when they're in those kind of situations, there's a lot of, I can't do this or you can't do this because it'd be unfair for someone really far away. And
how many of these are there?
It's that closely controlled?
Yes, for a lot of them.
Really? Wow.
And so it kind of limits what the stories people can tell, because you can't have the major aspect of your story, let's say in Los Angeles, and then that would be less likely it would be a major part of the story, let's say in Chicago.
Okay.
Or, can I back out even further? How many of these chapters are there?
Oh, there's probably thousands if you count the three major
Over the
groups.
whole globe?
Yeah.
So you could conceivably be ostensibly playing in the same world as somebody from Denmark?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to focus in...
And the thing I thought was kind of cool about it is you can also, I'm going to be in, I don't know, New Orleans for in the next month.
Your
Is
same
there a
character
game?
can go there.
And present yourself to the prince and all
Right.
that. Right.
Right.
So that'd be kind of cool.
That is
That's
kinda
neat.
cool.
That's kinda neat.
It's kind of cool, but it's a little limiting in that in the vampire setup where you have the Justicars and the inner counselors, and anytime you as a storyteller want to bring one of those people in, there's a whole approval process. There are problems with being able to do that. On an independent game like ours, we say, hey, these people have paid a bunch of boons, they've talked to the right people, we want to bring in the Bruja Justicar Theo Bell at this next game. We can have that happen, and we can get one of our people to play Theo Bell in that action. We don't have to worry about the paperwork to get that approved.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, sort of my next question was let's say I'm visiting Florida to go to Disneyland with the family for a week, and I'm like, oh well, I could pick up a vampire thing here, but you got to let them know, and they got to wrangle the forces. You can't just show up on the guy's door, storyteller's door, knock on it, and say, hey man, I'm here presenting myself. Like,
So,
dude, I'm going to bed. What the hell?
They limit it enough that you can.
You can.
The idea is, at a tabletop game, everyone essentially can be a hero because these are the people that are involved in the game.
Right.
If you go to an international concept, they have to keep limiting people's importance so everyone can go where they want to go.
Okay.
And since you're because if there's only let's say 7 of one group and you have the entire world to do that, the likelihood of you being one of those 7, it's not going to be very high.
No, yes, I get that. But if I'm going to be visiting Florida and I want to be in the vampire game while the family goes to, I still got to let people know ahead of time.
You normally would send an email to that person and you would say,
Right.
hey, I'm going to be coming here from this time to this time. Is there anything I could do to help out, whatever?
Because if I go to LARP in Texas and just knock on somebody's door, I might get shot. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, if you show up at 3 a.m. there.
It's a vampire LARP. Of course I'm showing up at 3 a.m.
Yes. So, yes, that is
okay,
absolutely true. But because of that limiting, you can't really necessarily tell the stories you want to tell. People are unable to kind of express what they want to do. And they're
You've got
kind
to keep your power level kind of limited, I would assume.
Right.
Okay.
And it kind of stops what everyone's choices are.
Right.
And if you still keep it where you keep it very close to continuity, but we are luckily in Los Angeles, one of the largest cities in the United States and one of these major kind of metropolitan areas, we are still able to, with canon, be able to do a lot more than what even a national or international game can do in LA, because they have to equalize where there wouldn't be vampires.
Right.
There could be a game, a 500-player game in St. Louis. There's no way there could be 500 vampires in the population of St. Louis.
Right.
Right.
So they still have to equalize it for that concept. Well, we can just say, we know the population of Los Angeles, we can kind of deal with Los Angeles being that level.
Right.
And so that's why we have kind of an independent game. But even in our independent game, there are multiple games for our setup. There's a Sabbat game that we do at conventions. We do the main kind of Kamerion game where everyone plays. And then we also have other parts of the story that people can go and do. So
Specialty games.
Yeah. So like if, let's say, there's a group of hunters who are tracking down the vampires, we would actually run a tabletop of those people playing the hunters, and their actions would affect the main game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you actually meld LARPing with tabletop when you're doing some of the stuff. That's fantastic.
I get that if they're playing the 20th anniversary and you guys are playing different games. Because my other thought was if you're playing this LARP, especially if it's global, you're kind of playing it all the time.
Right.
Like you could be at a restaurant, somebody comes in and stabs you, says a blood hunt over, and you're like, what the hell?
No, so if you're not at a game, you only can really be involved in chats.
Okay. All right, so you actually have to show up at a game. All right.
So you can only get stabbed at games.
At games.
Yes.
Unless they're in a church.
Right.
So, but like some people, let's say the characters wanted to go to the Caribbean and do something. We actually would, let's say, run a game at the con where all those characters are going to the Caribbean to go do that event.
Right.
Okay.
Or if it's a clan wants to go off and do something, or a coterie of 5 players wants to go to Chicago and do a thing, we can do a park day with just our people. We can do a tabletop at someone's house of that interaction. We can either do the tabletop version, or we could do almost the mini LARP game session. We did a Bruja Rant a while back, where it's everyone that was in Clan Bruja from both the Kamerion and the Sabbat game could come and bring those characters. We also then made a bunch of NPCs and just other world people that other players that wanted to come that day still had characters that were not their normal character, just to flesh out the rant a little bit. And then we did that at a park.
Okay.
And the freedom to kind of mix the tabletop and the LARP and the chat and everything, we only could do because we're independent.
Right. Yeah, okay, I get that.
It's kind of the difference, I think. I'm just trying to grok it between the, say, Pathfinder Society and running your own independent game.
Right.
Yeah. They follow the same rules. They use the same rule set. It's just that one has to be...
One has more latitude.
Right. One has a lot more latitude, yeah.
Right. So when you're... now, how long has it been running now?
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years.
Yep.
Now, I would imagine Vampire... this is an assumption. You probably, if you have a large enough group, storyteller-wise, there's not. It's probably more refereeing and less coming up with story.
We actually have probably 60% story and 40% player-driven.
No kidding, really. So, how do you go about with a large group? Because I've been running tabletop for decades. And I know what my table limit is, so that I can run a decent game and that everyone gets a chance to get involved in. And that's like 4 or 5. When I get to like 6 or 8, things start to get a little out of control. I once ran a D&D 4th edition game that had, 11?
11 of them.
And that was the worst mistake I ever made. I had a Cyberpunk GURPS game in the late 80s that actually had like 17 people in it. One session, and it just exploded. Because factions developed and they killed each other. And
so when you're trying to do that, maintain a plot like that for 50 people, it's a lot more difficult.
Right.
The basic concept is you create a PvP element and you also have a PvE element. And so as long as...
Player versus environment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So as long as you're having a player versus environment aspect that the players realize they have to dedicate some resources to, they then have to create some kind of unity to stop these conflicts.
Okay.
And then they also still have to fight for their own internal conflicts as well.
So what would be an example of a player versus environment?
So the city that they've actually started out as the original part of the game, they weren't in charge of. It was actually run by an oppositional force. And so they had to claim a land, they had to kind of prepare an area, and they had to fight against these opponents. They've never been able to completely wipe out the opponents.
Okay.
So they're fighting these Asian vampires called Cathayans that had controlled Los Angeles, and they've been able to like make treaties at times and been able to have wars against them at times. And then there's also like demons that kind of rise up that they have to kind of try to stop against because that's part of the LA canon plot. And then there's different domains that are controlled by other people. So on top of them making sure that they're the big cheese at their game, they have to make sure that their stuff is not taken away by the enemies.
Okay. So that's pretty much an ongoing struggle
Yes.
for
And
everyone.
Yes.
right, and there are tiers and different types of enemies. So if you're like, oh well, I don't really care if the Cathayans are a problem, but I really care about the demons being a problem, I can devote my attention to the PvE against the demons, or just against the Setites, or just against that group or that, which allows me to kind of pick and choose of, oh, that's more interesting to me, I'm going to go and devote time there.
Okay. Now these all of these NPCs or bad guys, are they all depicted by the storytellers, or do you have like people who volunteer to be?
We have both.
Okay.
So normally the storytellers and the primary staff are not running characters. They're always going to be having the NPC that comes in to either someone called in a resource from a foreign city, so that guy's going to come and give some information, or there is an enemy diplomat that's coming to, or there's some other plot point that the NPCs are bringing in. Or it could be, let's say, a player's like, well, my character would be going to New York for 3 months. Can I play something else and support the staff during those 3 months?
Right.
And so we can also do both sides of that.
Okay. All right. What does prep look like for a typical, like you probably have a session a month, I would imagine?
Yeah, a session a month, and then there is continuous chats throughout the month, and then we do the
And
3
those
cons.
are all in character?
Those are all in character.
Okay.
Then we do the 3 cons, and then we also do at least 2 to 3 specialty games a year at minimum.
Okay. So what is it like? You're weeks out from a monthly game. What does prep look like? How is that handled?
Okay, so players can submit downtimes. We usually have the week before, so downtimes are due. These can be the requests to, hey, I'm going to spend some time patrolling this area so that it's properly defended against other people coming in. Or, hey, I'm going to try to hunt down. I've gotten rumors from my previous investigations about some shadow guy off under a dock somewhere. So I'm going to spend time actually trying to hunt that guy to see if he's, me and my coterie can take him out. It's the, hey, I'm a Ventru and I have to go to Berlin because we owe Berlin a lot of money, so we're going to try to deal with them. They can spend the downtimes. If they say, hey, the 5 of us want to go to Berlin, for example, I actually had to run something like that for Ventru. There were 5 people that wanted to go to Berlin. We got on a Google Hangouts and I ran a scenario playing the NPCs for them so that they could then interact and have that deal. And I could push out information, I could push out plot to them, and they still, had bargains that they could strike, and they could offer this deal, they could offer that, and then go back to their people and say, hey, we've now got this and that in play.
Okay. Now how many storytellers are there?
There are 3 primary storytellers.
Okay, and those, how much latitude is there? Like if you guys are spread out, I mean, obviously you're not going to all be in one place. You're probably out,
Right.
with the different packs of people. How much latitude do you have to make decisions about unexpected things and stuff like that?
So on top of just the 3 storytellers for plot, there's other people who can run mechanic.
Right.
So if you want
like referees.
Yeah, there's referees abound. So that's not an issue. But so also kind of a point above what Michael's saying is once a year we actually write the plot Bible for the year. And then with that, we essentially create about 10 or 12 things, and everyone has either a victory or fail condition. And so the players can absolutely either succeed or fail on all those. Right. And then each of those successes or failures essentially will have a completion or a next plot that essentially is going to be the main arc for the year.
So how many storylines, because if you have 20, 30 people, how many storylines are you planning, do you plan for per session?
So per session, I would say 2 to 3, and that doesn't include all the ones the players made.
Okay.
A player might have a personal goal that they're going to go off and do, and then we're going to support that as well.
That's why I figured there wasn't a lot of stories, because once the power structure gets there, there's going to be the people who without power who are going to want it, and then just all of that hilarity that Vampire would happen.
It has a session where there are people who only focus on PvEP. And they're only like, I want to become Harpy of the City, I'm going to stop all comers on that, I'm going to manipulate the table, and they're very self-generating, they go.
Right.
And then there's other people who want to kind of experience the mystery of the world, and they want to see what's going on, and they want to kind of explore the other pieces, and those are the people that also have those plot parts. And because those people are dealing with what's written, and the PvP people are manipulating them to get what they want, everyone's essentially being funneled on personal plot and environment plot.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
And one of the great things is sometimes the players will throw a curveball at us, and will either come up with something off the cuff to do a response to, or it's like, oh, hey, I can actually dovetail this into this other piece here, which allows us to connect them to other players. It allows them to, have that next piece of their own plot. And ideally, we at least try to funnel them back towards other players and things they're doing, so that people continue to be connected.
Right.
Because that's the jihad in Vampire, is everybody has ties and connections to everyone else.
Sure.
There are always tugs and pulls. So you want to fight this guy, well, maybe this guy over here can help and this guy, and you build those ties, and that's what we try to redirect them into.
I've been reading the Mind's Eye Theater 20th Anniversary Edition. Is that what they call it? I don't know what
They call it By Night Studios or BNS.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's the big vampire
Yeah.
book that's the same size as...
550 pages.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It deals a lot more with things like boons
Yes.
than the regular Vampire the Masquerade book does, I noticed.
Yeah.
It has a huge amount of stuff about that. And that I'm assuming has a lot to do with that PvP stuff, or with creating that sort of cohesion.
Right. And
Because obviously you don't want... a nightmare for you, just like sitting at a tabletop, it seems to me, the nightmare for a GM is the one thief character who always wants to go off and sidebar for 90% of every session, right?
right.
Do you run into that same problem where you've got a person or a few people who want to go off and do their own thing and end up dominating a storyteller's time for the night?
So
How do you handle that?
There's two methods that they did. So they wrote another BNS book for Werewolf. And in the BNS book for Werewolf, they actually came up with this mechanic called quest sheets, where you don't have time to actually run it for them personally. And they essentially say what they're trying to do. You give them a list of requirements they have to meet. Once they meet those requirements, you give them some tests. When they win the test or lose the test, you tell them what occurred.
Okay.
And that's done.
Okay.
So you're in and out in 15 minutes, and they're still able to feel like they did their special thing they wanted.
Cool. And so like, you tell them that they're going to need have to meet certain requirements. Are these things that they're going to acquire in game? Talking to a storyteller, acquire from other PCs.
Other PCs.
Right. Okay.
So it's like they have to go find another guy who has that skill or that lore, and another guy who knows about this thing. Once they find all those pieces, then they come to you and say, "We're ready to go."
This brings up something I'm really curious about, and that's ostensibly the bookkeeping that you guys have to do, and how you guys go about adjudicating this in the moment.
Bookkeeping is fun.
Yeah, but there's got to be a lot, because there's three of you, plus you have to share this with the referees, and so at the end of the night, I mean, you guys describe to me a typical evening and how that works.
Okay. Do you want to do that, or you want me to do that?
Go for it.
Okay. So let's say I wake up, let's say at 7 o'clock the day of game. I'm already probably suited and ready by noon. We probably have lunch most of the time with all the staff from noon to 3, where we essentially refresh everything that we knew from last event and what we're expecting to happen.
So everybody brings their notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
so now, are these notes compiled during the downtime between sessions?
Yes.
So you're just basically, this is just a refresher course for
Right. And remember, stuff has happened between the last.
Because there's all
that's
that
right.
Because and all of the downtime stuff factored into this as well.
You guys are monitoring this.
Right.
You guys are monitoring this full time. Sometimes. If it gets busy.
So what we've also made them do in the chats is, if we aren't monitoring it, they have to send us a sentence of what happened.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So we've lowered that a little. We used to monitor every day. It was a lot rougher.
That would be crazy.
Because that was 10,000
Yeah.
chats a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
There were individual clans and conversations that would hit 1,100, 1,500 messages.
I'd get fired.
Yeah.
I'd be spending all the time trying to figure that shit out. Not working.
Well, but you'd be living off the big LARP bucks.
Yeah.
Oh.
No LARP bucks. No LARP bucks. We barely play site fees. So
I'll just buy a bunch of them and make a house out of it.
so then we arrive at game probably around 5 o'clock, and game starts at about 6 to 7. At that kind of intro time, everyone comes in, they sign in the sheet, they pick up their items that they had for their previous character, and at that early piece, they can say, oh, by the way, before I came to game, I did this. And they can talk to a storyteller for a few minutes.
Right.
We're then at event. The storytellers kind of separate, run whatever they're running.
But so you guys are like in Cape Canaveral, surrounded by monitors and phones and everything, and everything's ringing and buzzing, and there's notes flying back and forth. It's like old stock exchange with phones. And you guys are trying to right? That's what I picture is going on.
Most people, first of all their character sheets are digital on their phones.
Oh, well, that's weird.
Because
Digital. Wow.
all the character sheets are Google Docs.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And then from the Google Docs, we essentially can just update their XP. We can update all the things that they buy. Anytime they send a submission, we just paste it in there so they have a reference to it. And that took us a while to build out perfectly.
Right.
But that's been working solid.
You still have to keep track of that. You have to look at their old one, their new one. You have to read what they did and then update. And so, okay.
Right. And occasionally go back and audit the books, too, of, oh, hey, they paid the wrong XP here, or we charged the wrong thing there.
Then there's also one for quest sheets, just for, we have the reference of that was what the quest was. So the bookkeeping piece is primarily the fancy character sheets and the quest sheets.
Okay.
So if you're in an adjudication and you say, hey, I don't believe you have that, you just show the guy your phone, that's what I have.
This is all you sent me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Here's your file.
Right. And the people aren't allowed to edit theirs. They only have view permissions.
Okay.
Right. Only the staff.
So anyone who shows a sheet, it's true, because it meant a staffer edited.
All right.
And then game ends about midnight. We gather everyone to kind of gather, say, here's some like major things, here's the next event. And then we normally go off and eat. We come home probably about 1 or 2.
You've skipped over a whole important bit, which is
the gaming part.
While the game is going on, what is it you do? Is it like the old stock exchange when things are flying back and forth and you're adjudicating and doing stuff and this guy goes here and this guy goes here. What? Sell,
Sometimes
buy.
Sometimes
is
no.
that what it's like, or is it just sort of sitting back, drinking a beer, going, I don't want to talk to you right now?
It's pretty. So if you're actually running it as a staffer, you're either being 100% giving info dumps, being the NPC answering their questions, supporting them that they called in for other downtimes. You're playing that character that they've called in for help.
Okay.
Or you're playing the oppositional character.
So, because this is a live event, you have to get up, walk over there, pretend to be somebody, come back, make notes about what you just did.
We normally don't make them then. We normally compile it later.
Good memories, yeah.
Well, what happens if someone forgets something?
Yeah. Because I would forget leaving that group and coming back. I would get interrupted by 10 other people asking for stuff. By the time I got back there, I'm like, what did I just go out and get up there for?
You normally remember enough of the general story. Because all you need to think about in every interaction is 1 or 2 sentences. You don't need every word.
Right.
It's this person spoke to that person and learned these data. Done.
Right.
That person is aggressive to get this person. That person's trying to help this person. As long as it's just keeping all these 15 characters are the hard part.
As long as it's only 15. I mean, I could see 30, 40, 50 people at a thing.
No, but like the staffer's normally only playing 1 person at a time.
Okay.
Right.
So
and he'll have his people he's interacting with. I'll have the clan or the group that I'm interacting with. Theo, the other guy, he'll be interacting with the group as well.
I couldn't
and then there'll be a bunch of people that were all just
the
talking.
conversation, so I went back and I'd have notes because I could tell that I would get the names messed up. I could tell that I would get the nuances of the stuff that they were trying to do messed up, and then it's on me. And they're like, I never did that. Who's this Shali? No, it was Shillelagh.
Okay, but like even if you didn't remember, there would be nothing wrong sending a message to that person later. You know, I was really tired in the interaction. Can you give me a refresher of what occurred? You at least know who you talked to.
Well,
and then that
maybe.
person's happy to. They're like, it at least gives you that amount.
Okay.
And that is the kind of in the game moment. And then there's also times where, like you're saying, where like you have a group of people who want to go do something right away. So then a storyteller will take those group of people to the side, and they'll run that, and then the other 2 people will essentially maintain the game.
So, I mean, what happens in those situations where you've got some sort of storyline set up, and someone has had like a massive intuitive leap, or is approaching it from a direction that you just didn't anticipate? Because that happens
Absolutely.
in role-playing games all the time.
I take pride in that.
It happens in D&D all the time.
Sure, absolutely. How do you... If you have several storytellers and you've got plots plotted out for the next year, and you suddenly have to improvise something.
Okay, so that's why there's never just one plot at a game. If someone absolutely blows something out of the water in 15, 20 minutes, more power to them. Then we can either
that's
focus...
why you have... Okay. All
either
right.
that we could focus on player plots that we already know about, or we could focus on the backup plots.
Okay.
There's never going to be an empty moment, and we never stop someone from succeeding.
Right, okay.
Because if someone...
I figured you wouldn't... You're not going to do that. You're not going to say, no, you can't do that because we didn't think of that.
Right, no, it's... Even if they... Like, there was actually one day where they were so utterly successful. I'm like, guys, you've actually finished all 3 plots. We still have 45 minutes left of the game, but I got nothing for you. And so you guys can walk around and do what you want.
Go stab each other in the back.
But this is all we have for you today. And it was... Everyone was like, oh, well, you know, it's actually more dramatic to end at this moment than it is for us to kind of Miranda for a bit. But...
Right.
We're absolutely, it's the goal of the player satisfaction.
Okay, all right. Now, I had one more question. I just forgot it. Just fell out of my head.
You were talking about when people derail and change the plots.
Yeah, I was off of that.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember now.
And also one of the benefits of that, because we know where the plot is going, if someone does throw us a curveball, we have the option of saying, all right, can we incorporate this back into the greater plot somehow? Or is this, okay, well, that's rolled. What would be the consequences of that being resolved this quickly? There would have been some other group that was maybe influencing them or trying them, or now they've got attention of this other group. And then we can, even if it's a week later, we go, this is how we can spin that. At the very least, in the moment, it's like, all right, yeah, you had total success there. That works.
Mm-hmm. And then you also have to deal with just real people's lives. Like, the leader of the city actually lived in Seattle. Lived in Washington State. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I'm not going to be able to return to the game. So we're like, okay, we were at the convention, and we're like, we actually can have these oppositional people take out the leader of the city, so that when people go to the normal game, there's a reason why the leader of the city's gone, and players got to experience that.
Right.
Yeah. She was carrying some wood lumber and fell on a stake and was in torpor for the next till she. Yeah.
Okay, I remembered what I was going to ask you. When you do your monthly games, and you have it at some kind of location, either a park or a ballroom or someone's house,
We typically try to go for the cam game to be at a location. We've had hotel ballrooms when we got a good deal. We have a couple of other places. We've used people's houses from time to time as well. But it's one of those from all of the guerrilla gaming back in the 90s that a lot of people experienced. We're so happy when we get bathrooms.
Sure.
So it's like, hey, are you willing to pay $10 to pay the game so that we can spend $400 to get this site? The 40 people that are here, and everybody gets a bathroom.
Right.
And our current site that we're pretty much using all the time actually looks like an 80s goth club.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It is the recording studio for this kind of heavy metal industrial thing, and so it looks like an 80s goth club.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Now, when you have the monthly events, are they? Is it an Elysium, or is it like a court, or is it a specific event?
It's plot dependent.
Okay.
Right. It's been
90%
Elysium, but yeah, there are times where they've gone to the Orange County to meet with the Giovanni that are in Orange County. There have been a couple times where it's specifically specified, no, this is not an Elysium tonight. So it changes, but typically Elysium.
Okay, and you bounce that around to whatever place that you can happen to be able to get, or you.
Right. There's the out-of-character location where we're actually playing, and then there's the in-character, Elysium site or other. So we'll go through. We'll either post pictures up on the Facebook page beforehand of saying, "Hey, this is the site," or we'll tell people when they arrive, "Hey, you're at the house from Blade Runner. That's the Elysium for tonight." That kind of stuff.
Okay. All right. Okay.
That brings up actually sort of maybe a bit of a side note. Back in college when I was doing something that really wasn't a LARP, but it could be considered a LARP now in hindsight when the word wasn't invented, we would run around the area around the college and such, and occasionally cops would get called because there's a bunch of people wandering around.
He's got some stories about
How
that.
do you handle that? Because that happens, especially if you're in a park or something.
Yes.
People who wander by and they see
wandering
guys
around
in
with trench coats
and katanas.
Yes. So, luckily, we've only had like 2 situations of that, and we can kind of essentially go, it's kind of a escape room theater thing, and they're like, oh, okay, don't worry about it, or like someone's living right there, and the Sabbat game, we actually allow full props, and those only are in private residence.
Right.
And if you're in any open space, you can't have any props.
Right.
That's because something bad happened once? Can you give me a beer?
Well,
More because you're able to create a different sensation with full props, and we don't want that sensation to be for people who aren't playing.
People are still in fangs and trench coats.
Right, but it's like...
Which is enough to scare... I mean, people are afraid of clowns. It's enough to scare most people.
Normally, they aren't around people. Like, I don't think any of the situations we've had are actually been around any large numbers of people. Like, even the hotel ballrooms, no one's going in that.
Okay, all right. I submit to you, you guys play in parks. What happens when, the picnickers next door wig out?
We've only been in parks for a Bruja Rant and...
Well, Brujas. I mean, what could possibly go wrong there? There's not going to be fireworks or destruction or chaos at all.
It was far enough away from people that it actually wasn't.
All right.
It's like, if you think SCA people are still having that kind of issue.
Well, yeah. That was what I was going to say. I mean, the SCA has gotten in trouble, but they also had rich eccentric donors that have donated ranch land for them to just have wars on. So
Right.
they've kind of been able to sidestep that. And they're a little less scary because if somebody walks around in a bunch of armor, they're like, oh, it's a CA. But when you guys walk up in a trench coat with your goth makeup and fangs, people start taking their kids off the street.
Most people are just walking around in 3-piece suits.
Okay.
And
That's the benefit of Kamerion.
Yeah, well,
they are very pro masquerade.
okay. I mean, if you're playing a gangrel or Bruja, there's no suits.
no, but
Anyway.
even them, we've been lucky. But like I have stories of the past where they're police putting people on the grounds with shotguns.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been in those experiences.
Okay.
How far do the people playing Nosferatu go?
Okay.
Because I think I saw someone who I think might have been a Nosferatu.
No, they were playing a Shimase at a con.
Oh, they were. That was
Yeah.
that the tall guy.
Yes, his name is Harry Fox.
Okay.
He does amazing
Yes.
costuming. His Shimase actually has a situation where every game he has to have a completely different makeup.
Okay.
And those are only at events where we can kind of conceal those types of things.
Got it.
At the actual, where we're
that
able
was
to
a
play
Sabbat
Kamerion.
game.
Right, that was a Sabbat game. At where we're playing Kamerion now, though, it is almost a truck pickup area into like a secret recording studio well off of the streets, and we're only playing in the recording studios.
Right.
So, and it looks like a nightclub. So all the places, if people are dressed weird, it's never been an issue. Because there's just no strangers. There's just us.
Right. Oh, so you're actually in a recording studio with like several rooms.
Yes.
So if
Yeah.
people want to go in their own little covens and start plot against.
Right.
Exactly.
We've actually a couple times had to go through and say, all right, at this particular location, there are no doors. You can't actually close any of these spaces. If you
So people wanna
if
listen,
you
they can
if
listen.
you and if you
Right.
wander around in character, you can absolutely go in any of these rooms. It's that and the prince is stuck in a closed door meeting all day. If we say, okay, well, there are no doors, there is no closed room for you to go to. They have to figure out some other way to communicate and have that private meeting.
Right.
This is just like running a normal vampire game, Stu, except with ADD. Nobody can sit down. Everybody has to walk around.
Right.
Everybody's like, I can't
not a bad way to
sit here. I
describe
got to move around. So everybody has to move around and interact because they can't focus.
Well, and things are happening out your perspective.
Right.
That there is the biggest differences between tabletop and LARP is everyone is an opposition. When you're at a table, you have a certain concept of these are my allies. That
To an
things
extent.
to an extent. Then the second thing is there's fully stories occurring outside your perspective.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say, is that it seems to me the big difference would be that you don't have to metagame as much, because people can literally go, you come here, let's go talk. And other people in that group have no idea what's going on.
Yes.
Whereas in a tabletop, people are like talking openly. It's like, you guys didn't hear any of this, and now you have to pretend like you didn't know any of that information. But that doesn't have to happen in LARP, because they genuinely don't know.
right.
Right.
And you guys can come up and whisper something in their ear, and they're like, oh, God, the storytellers just told them shit.
Exactly.
And even though that's a little metagamey, they genuinely don't know what's going on now.
Right, because it could be $95 for the
Now
bottle.
you're immersed.
Yeah.
Right.
I got to find out what they...
Well, that's why I've always leaned towards clearing the room or taking the player aside.
Sure.
For when you're having secret stuff, because you don't have to metagame. You get to be immersed.
Even the best of players. I mean, it's that old lawyer thing, which is they'll say stuff and they'll, please strike that, but they've already heard it and they can't unhear it.
Right.
And it still affects their judgment. It's still out there floating around. And even the best gamers, even though they don't act on information that they've heard, it's still there. Right. And it's hard not to color your decisions.
Right, and sometimes you pull so hard away from that.
Yeah.
So that you don't accidentally metagame.
Or be accused of it, yeah.
Right. I had before I joined staff, I was playing a character, and I knew that one of the other people was an infernalist. I as Michael did, but my character had no idea. And there were a couple of hints that he got, but it's like I can't just act on these hints. Something has to happen to make it certifiable for him, so that I didn't accidentally.
And if you as a player didn't know that, and you get these hints, go, that's weird. I'm going to look into this. You would have had it wouldn't. He had no hesitation at all to go and look into it, because you're not second guessing yourself.
Yeah, and it'd be really cool if you're in a LARP and suddenly the storyteller walks up and says, you know what, you smell, whenever he comes around, you smell brimstone. And you're like, do I now? Okay, now there's a thing. Now you go find friends to go follow up on this.
Right.
I can completely, as opposed to sitting at a table where you're pretending not to hear the fact that somebody just got told they smell brimstone. That seems really interesting to me, because there's a purity of through line. It's much more of a method acting. Don't you know?
So like,
you
even
don't
with
have to
that,
pretend you don't know.
They might just lean on the side of a door and hear something.
Sure.
And the people didn't even know that they were overheard.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then they could start a whole thing and tell other people about it, even without any storyteller involvement.
Right.
I'm gonna go play a Bruja and just make up shit.
There you go.
Yeah, just wandering around like make up gossip.
We had I think he was playing Bruja at the time. We had a Bruja do that.
Yeah.
Started making up things, and other people took it as fact, and then the whole political things came of it.
That's awesome.
Because he was like, I got this on lock, I'm going to do this thing.
It's alternate facts, man.
All the Tremere have ghouls with flamethrowers. That's what he went around telling people.
That's awesome. Heavy Metal Jess says that we can't LARP until we do the Supers LARP that we promised long ago.
Right. Heavy Metal Jess, rock on. It's so good to have you with us still. Heavy Metal Jess has been one of our listeners for the longest time. It's awesome.
Yes.
And she's up in the Portland area.
Yeah, there's a Champions LARP. You know, the role-playing game. Yeah.
Teaches math.
The LARP is much more rules light.
There's still dice. There's still
there's no dice. You use the hundredths of a second. It's a D10 system, so you just beep beep, and then whatever that number is, because you're not going to be able to. It moves so fast, you know. You know one of the coolest things I saw at Gen Con that excited me more than anything else when we played Games on Demand, which is
the Vampirella cosplayers love that.
No.
Oh.
L5R LARP.
Oh. All right. Well, you got your
all of these kimonos and katanas wandering around with fans, whispering to each other. It was fantastic.
Well, like there's a Star Wars LARP about Cantina Far Away that they are all dressed in Star Wars stuff.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is that done here, or is that?
Yeah, it's in LA.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very fun. Okay, we should go on to emails.
Sora, I'm still riveted by this.
I know.
I'm still the nuts and bolts of a LARP. I think I might just have to go and experience it to see how it's. I'm really more interested in the mechanics of it than I am in the actual playing of it.
Well,
I really want to see how it is. I don't have that kind of time. I could barely do the tabletop stuff that we do, and even then, it's we'll see. Maybe someday when I get unemployed or hurt or something and have time to. But I'm really interested in how you guys do this voodoo that you do.
Well, maybe you might just come to a con game.
It also doesn't seem like fun to me to be a storyteller because it seems like a lot of bookkeeping.
Oh, see, I think I would.
Would you?
Yeah, I think I would.
I
control freak.
I do a lot of DMing for D&D as well. It's I'm presenting a plot, and these people are interacting with it. They're telling a bit of a story, and I'm giving them the tools to tell their story. And it's I feel kind of the same way of this is we're giving them extra pieces to play with. We're especially with the environment stuff. We're giving them the set pieces, and then what they want to play with comes into play, and we just kind of let them run.
And it scratches a certain creative itch to do it, and it's fun. It's fun doing that kind of prep, if that is the thing that you consider to be fun.
It's like stage managing, though. I mean, yes, there are certain people that love to stage manage,
sure.
and it's traffic control, and it's making sure that people hit their marks and get out there on time, and it's a lot of work. But stage managers make a play go on. Actors otherwise would just be wandering around backstage lost. I don't know where the door is. The sound guy would be making out with his girlfriend, right? The
sound guys have girlfriends.
The ticket people will be running away with the money. It's the sound. It's the stage managers that make the stuff go around, and that's ostensibly your job. It's part babysitter. It's also part taskmaster because you have to make sure that people get the hell out there.
But you're also coming up with plot lines, and you're coming up with all kinds of stuff to throw at the players. And that stuff's fun.
Making sure people don't wander too far off the book. You just dropped 6 pages, you moron! Get back out there and fix it.
Yes. Well, like to also help people who don't know as much, every 2 weeks we also do educational videos so they understand the mechanic better. So they need less storytelling help.
So on top of all of this, you're also making videos.
It's sort of an anarch using his technomancy to have this video that appears, and I'll do a 2-minute video talking about the kind of the global gossip, and then there'll be a piece about the local LA game that has happened either months ago or has happened again now, so that they get this extra little bit of hey, it's your old pal Squints now, and it's just it's a mask and it's a voice, and put it on my phone, record it once, and send it off, kind of thing.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool.
A little bit of immersion,
right?
And a little hint of Majestic in there with sort of a multimedia going on.
Absolutely. All right.
Remember Majestic?
I did not play Majestic.
Yeah, that was the thing that ended right around 9/11. Because people were like, someone's going to think that this is someone plotting something.
Quite literally, the day it started, the planes hit the building. I mean, it was like within days, and they were like smart enough to pull it off. But it was going to be this whole immersive, like you would get phone calls and these clues that would happen. You'd get mail. Somebody would come up to the door, hand you a note, and leave. I mean, it was going to be this full-on...
Like The Institute?
Yeah, or The Game. Remember the movie The Game?
Yeah.
It'd be something like that. But people thought better of it after 9/11 because.
Well, there are things called, I think they're called haunts, where they're
Yes.
horror-themed versions of that.
Right, and there's still the murder mystery theaters and dinner theaters and stuff, but this was much more of a, you would just be walking down the street and somebody come up and hand you a note or whisper something and move on, and they were hired actors that were part of this whole thing that would interact throughout, X amount of time. But anyway, we wander off. I bring this up now and again because it was such a cool idea, and I was on the cusp of doing it, and then I always give them credit because after 9/11, people would be too paranoid. If some weirdo came up and handed you a note, they would get shot.
Yeah.
And
Or at least, call someone.
right.
Yes.
Right.
That's like why the Institute only worked in San Francisco. It's like nowhere else would you randomly trust a stranger.
Yeah.
I guess you've got some of your people in the chat room because they're talking about Squints.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Does he drop a lot of plot gold?
Did you just out yourself?
He's been I think there's 5 videos of that, maybe 4 or 5. And he gets wildly mixed reactions. I'll post a video, and like 10 minutes later, the chats will start blowing up of, "Who the heck is this guy? We gotta find him. We gotta kill him." And da 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 da. He just outed this and things like that. So it's.
Did you just out yourself? Are you going to be in trouble now?
Oh no, everybody knows.
Everybody knows he's a bad guy.
Yeah, everybody knows that Michael, is the one portraying it, but they have no information about who he is.
So there is some metagaming elements, huh?
Well, because he's a staffer. So
I get it.
Right.
So it's the character that I'm
And
playing.
he's wearing the mask from Mr. Robot.
Society. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So now,
Love that show.
when do you you'll give this video to like one person and they choose who they're going to send it to, or do you post it on a Facebook group?
So for that, I'll post them on the Facebook group because he's using Technomancy. Essentially, all of their phones and tablets, etc., start ringing with this streaming video.
Okay.
And
so-
it's got a timestamp of, hey, at 11
so
o'clock
he's a
on this
mage.
night.
He's not a vampire.
No, there's vampire technomagic.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's vampire
Yeah.
technomages?
Yes, there is.
Oh.
Yeah. There's a lot of
that
anarchs
canon?
that have
Is that
that.
canon?
Yeah, it is.
Is this canon, really?
Yeah.
Which clan is that?
No, it's a path of thaumaturgy called technomancy.
Oh, it is. Oh, there
Yeah.
is. Okay.
In 20th? I'll have to
It
go
might
see.
be in the Mind's Eye book, or what do they call it?
It's in Mind's Eye, but it is actually in the Rights of the Blood in V4V20.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
It's scattered amongst 3 chapters, though, so you have to track it all.
Not necessarily. No, the stuff
Forwards
for the
over here and 7
Yeah.
there and 2 here.
most of the stuff for the powers is all right there. I just failed to read it. All right. Would you like to, since you guys are new here, would you like to read the first email?
The Making Bookkeeping Fun.
Hey!
Yes.
That's topical.
It's a long one. If you want to break, we can break it up because.
Well, I'll give it a shot.
All right.
Oh, wise and drunken ones of great renown, I beseech your wisdom on another gaming topic: how to make bookkeeping fun. I'll start off with a caveat that a good story trumps everything, and you can have a satisfying campaign with no material advancement. I'd like to discuss the management of wealth in RPGs. While this can be true of any game, there are certain systems that use accumulation of wealth or material goods as a primary method for advancement. And even most systems with more traditional advancement systems tend to include wealth accumulation in their models. With any of these, there are a number of pitfalls and opportunities. I'll list a few that I've brainstormed, but would like to hear your thoughts on more. I'll use the Goldilocks analogy for my 3 main points. This bed is too soft. The voice was not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, you're going to need more water.
Yeah.
This bed is too soft. Everyone's heard of or experienced the Monty Hall campaign where your first level adventurer pilfer a dragon's hoard and are suddenly walking around with vorpal swords and rods of wonder.
Yeah, I used to run those, yeah.
Let me just make an observation. This is the 2nd or 3rd time I've seen Monty Hall spelled H-A-U-L.
Right, yeah. Which makes it funnier than
It's
H-A-L-L,
funnier.
yeah.
But it's that they don't know who Monty Hall was.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's. I don't know if that's. the case.
I'm giving them the
But it
benefit of
might
the doubt
be.
that it makes
might
it more
be.
sense, just like Fat Lutz is not L.
Well, I was thinking it's when you have quite a haul, when you get all the loot,
Right.
Monty Hall.
I've even seen that written that way in game books.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've only noticed this in the last 2 weeks, and I've seen it in 3 different, just disparate places written.
It's a wonderful, it's a
H-A-U-L.
pun, It's
Yeah.
wonderful. It's play on words, Palindrome. It's the
not
same
like-
as what is backwards.
Sorry.
Club.
Apart from avoiding this entirely, you could throw a few complications such as making the players figure out how to get this massive wealth back to civilization. 1 million gold pieces doesn't fit in a backpack, even if you're not playing with encumbrance. Rampant inflation of the local economy with a sudden influx of gold, or maybe this podunk little town now becomes a major trading hub, bringing with it a host of new plot points. Or by flashing a bunch of bling, the players are now the targets of bandits, criminal conspiracies, throngs of beggars, and povish nobles. Maybe some of this is good, enabling them to get in with the kingdom's political elite, or take over some of the organizations.
Right, you show up on the million gold pieces, you are the political elite.
And every third cousin on the planet is going to come to visit.
Yes.
All right, option 2. This bet is too hard. In gritty games such as post-apocalyptic game, or Mech Warrior, or maybe a noir campaign, managing resources might be critical to the feel of the game. It's not much a wasteland if you're not counting your bullets and wondering where your next meal will come from. In cases like this, I struggle a bit with how to do it well. While there is a sense of suspense to be had from material scarcity, there also seems to be too much immersion breaking. It's easier to track resources for the player sitting with a calculator, pen, and paper for the character who is in a second-to-second firefight. It's also harder for other things for the player to remember the random matchbox she picked up 18 months ago in real time, but that character will remember it essentially because it was merely 2 days ago in game time. In these cases, it would seem like abstractions such as a vampire's wealth stat or some such could be used to invoke a, nope, you ran out of X, Y, or Z at a critical moment. Even then, though, I'd worry about such shortfalls coming across to GM Fiat, quashing the player's plans.
It is a double-edged sword. I've played games where you had to count every arrow, you had to go and fetch them, and it does add a sense of urgency, it does add meaning to these things. But yeah, all of a sudden you start keeping a list of your inventory, like how many matches do I have left? How much food do I have? Oh, I need to hunt now. And it can descend into just checking off boxes off your inventory. But, that being said, if you know that that's what it is, you make a list and you make it easy to access pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, the Bloodblade and Tusk game, that's a kind of a medieval fantasy, which is the Inquisition meets orcs. And that is a very resource-tight game. Gina's character has to literally go and check her arrows and see, after she kills someone with them, and see what kind of condition they're in. And it's actually caused plot complications, because there are times when part of the party has enough money to be able to afford an inn, and the other part of the party is camping outside the wall of the city, so they're a good distance apart from each other when the shit hits them.
The economy has split the party.
Right, yes, the stratification.
Yes, class classes.
And that's an interesting thing. Sometimes it can get tedious.
Yes.
But so far it has brought in interesting aspects. I usually ignore that stuff in games.
Yes.
It's like, if you want to buy something, yeah, we'll just get it. I don't care.
Right.
But it's made things that you find of value more valuable.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I'm gathering up tents and boots, and does he have armor? And I'm, can I sell these boots for 2 to 3 copper? Because it does add up after a while. But I mean, that also comes from like Fallout, playing Fallout, where you're gathering up all of the paper clips, or is it it's bobby pins that you can. Or you didn't know. He didn't know. He was just selling them. And then
I wasn't even selling them. I was leaving them.
You didn't know you needed them, right?
Right. Then I found a safe, and who picks a safe with a bobby pin?
I was in a game years ago where you did count all the things, but at a fight, you had to flip that sheet over.
Ooh. Because you're in panic.
Exactly.
You're not paying attention.
And only the storyteller knew what your numbers were, and he'd say, oh, no, you're actually out of arrows. Because in the middle of the fight, you're not hunting through your bag of what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you're like, you have to try to remember, I looked at that sheet a while ago, but in the fight, how many arrows can I waste on that guy? How many...
Or if you're panic firing a 9mm
exactly
over the course of several instances, you don't know how many rounds you got left.
I did play a Boot Hill game with Richard Garfield years ago. It's the first and only time I ever played Boot Hill, and I forgot to reload after one event, and I was 1 bullet short. Oh. And it was like, and he goes, so did you reload after that last bullet you did? I'm like, shit, I didn't say it, did I? And he goes, click.
See, I usually have my players, like when I play D&D games, I'll have them track the special stuff. Like if they get extra ammunition and they only have 6 shots of this type of arrow, they have to track that. But a standard arrow, unless they're going to go on an extended campaign, dungeon crawl, they're going to be in 36 fights before they get into another town. It's like, okay, yeah, you're going to be able to go to town, you're going to find for a couple of copper some arrows, it's not going to be a problem. It's the specialty stuff that you want to track more.
Sure, yeah.
Still, that click resonated. Yeah. It made the story so much more interesting, because now all of a sudden tables are flipping and I'm trying to reload while the gunfire is going off. And it would not have happened if I wasn't doing resource management, or if I did do, or had unlimited bullets, like the way most people play these games. Much more interesting.
Bullets are magic items. They really are.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
This bed is just right. Okay, that's not the best use of analogy, but the real reason I'm writing this email is to get thoughts on traditional Traveler campaign or something like it, where flow of cash is effectively the primary way of rewarding players and advancing characters. As a player who likes some of the nitty-gritty of party-level accounting, I run the books on maintaining our party's medieval estate in a Pathfinder game I play, I'm still daunted by the level of detail in Traveler. It feels like you could easily turn a game into either 1 or 2 above just by making some poor assumptions or math on job rewards. Either you mess up and the party isn't making enough money to fuel the ship and or make it worth their while, or you slip in an extra 0 and now they buy their way out of problems. I think I know at least one of Stu's approaches, given how much abstraction was being done in the Ashes of Exodus campaign. But how do you balance hand-waving away the accounting and things like Bruce's character in the Star Wars campaign, where it seemed that his primary goal and source of satisfaction was upgrading the ship? I can see hand-waving things like maintenance and fuel costs, and just saying, Mr. Johnson will pay you 1 mega credit plus expenses to transport his Regalian aardvark to the Regina of the Spinward Marches. But don't know how it's reasonable to then split that money between 5 party members, one of whom owns 50% stake in the ship, and another which is a drifter that just happened to befriend, etc.
Yeah.
On a tangential note, one thing I really enjoy is being encouraged to spend some portion of the character income on indirect uses. For example, taking some of your hard-earned dungeon crawl electrum and donating it to the local temple of Tyrmor, investing in a local merchant, outfitting your household guard with good equipment, donating in a local politician for future endeavors, etc., instead of just buying yourself a new shiny piece of armor. Thanks for bearing with me and my JIP-worthy email? Jib-worthy email, in length if not girth and quality. Steve in SoCal, the Grimace on the forums.
When it comes to things with Traveler, I have to default to Firefly, because basically we've discovered that Firefly...
Hand to mouth.
Wait, what? Hand to mouth? Yeah.
Hand to mouth.
Well, and also, I think it's what you started in one of your Traveler games, is the one where Dave was the owner of the ship, which is...
That's because Dave rolled a Duke.
He did.
An Archduke or something.
But we were all basically employees getting a salary. And then if we did make a big windfall, then it was distributed. But otherwise, on top of running the ship, we all had to get X amount of money every month, otherwise... Well, I was playing the cook, so I was hired on as crew.
Yeah, you were all employees.
Right.
We were all employees.
Right.
And that kind of, I think, is how Firefly kind of worked, too, which is these guys were all on this ship. They were all getting a stipend of some sort to be there, and then if there was a windfall, it got distributed. But otherwise, Mal had to make sure that he kept basic, and that was part of basic expenses, was making sure that everybody got their 1,000 credits a month or whatever it was. That's kind of the way to handle it, I think, when you're dealing with a ship in Traveler, is there's one guy in charge, or 2 guys, and they have to figure out, they pay their crew, and then anything left over, they get to keep themselves after fuel and everything else.
Right.
Well, that's I think how that model's supposed to work, but people forget. Everybody thinks that they're all just freelancers and they're all in it together. It's not the way it's designed.
The way that you can do it, though, even if they're all freelancers, is you do it more of an expanse method where it's ebbs and tides of we have a ton of money, then the ship got blown up and we stole another ship. And you constantly ebb and tide of things are great, things are bad, things are great, things
Feast
are
and
bad.
famine cycles.
And just like how you see in Expanse. In Expanse, we got this rogue ship that's terrible, we barely survive, now we go still cool Martian ship, and now you kind of move it where the resource growth is
they
only...
didn't steal that. It was legitimate salvage.
Yeah, it was.
Totally legitimate.
But part of the cool thing about Travelers, is it is upgrading your ship and such. It's not as cool as the video games where you're like, oh, cool, I found a new ship, I'm going to upgrade and all that. But it is kind of, you get attached to it like a house. You're like, it's our ship, man. I'm just gonna dump it.
So I have to admit, I actually have never played Traveler. I'm unfamiliar with the system. Are there ways then, if you are the bookkeeper for the ship and running your expenses and whatnot, could you even get to the point of trying to find different suppliers for food and fuel so that you can get maybe a better deal in this port?
Sure, yeah.
And that reduces your overall expenses at times?
There's game mechanics for that.
Right. Taking out loans and credits and having to pay interest rates back.
Absolutely.
It's actually
principal reductions.
Actually a very elegant, simple game. Despite all of that, it's a really, really cool
It can
game.
become as complicated as you want.
Yeah.
All that stuff is there. You can, in fact, Dave, I sat down, because Dave's character... there's a bunch of expansion books for, this is Mongoose Traveler, which was sort of a republishing of the old original.
Which, as a side note, if you've never played, just go buy the book and do a character generation for yourself, and you will be instantly hooked, because you basically make a randomly generated character.
Nice.
And it's got like a little mini game in itself.
It's a game in and of itself. It's fantastic.
Because you go through training, you fail out, you go to another one, you have these, and you gather up these skills, and then each time, anyway, it's a lot of fun. And then you get this character, you're like, I have no idea. He has no combat skills, but he's got engineering of 3. Okay, I guess I'm gonna. So at the end of this thing, you end up with a character that you would never have planned out on your own, and you have to make it work.
Okay.
The character that David made, it was out of the Merchant Prince book, which gives you a lot of advantages with the social status, which is one of your 6 stats. And he ended up with a social status of like 15 or 14 or something.
Which, let's explain too, that this is a 2d6 system.
Okay.
Right? And basically 12 is
the highest you're ever going to roll.
Roll.
But during character creation, numbers can go higher.
Because you get bonuses. Right.
Okay.
So he was an archduke.
Like second cousin to the guy in charge of the entire universe.
Maybe related to the emperor.
Right.
Maybe not. Who knows? But now we had to figure out, okay, why the hell is this archduke? He had, I don't know, 20 shares or something in a yacht.
Yeah.
What the hell is he doing going around with the rest of the party?
Oh, just a little gallivanting today.
Exactly.
So,
we had to give it up our justifications why this guy's on Serenity.
He's on. What we figured out was that he was on the run. Someone had tried to assassinate him. His father is actually Duke, but he's heir. So there was an attempt on his life. So he's actually out hopping from system to system, just trying to stay away from where they think the people might be trying to kill him.
I like it.
And he had to hire crew. So the rest of the party, whether they were suited for those positions or not, some of them were there undercover, under other auspices. Some of them weren't. But everyone in the party made up the crew of the ship, pretty much exclusively. I don't think there were any NPCs on the crew. I think it was all PCs, because it was a 6-member party.
And I had I ended up hiring as a cook because I think I had 1 or something in hospitality. Just it randomly came up because again it's all these random tables. I got hospitality 1 or 2. I'm like, can I be the cook on the show? That'll work.
And one of the things that they would do is they would go to one system, buy stuff for the cargo hold at a certain price, then go to the next system and try to sell it for more, obviously, so they could make money. Plus, they have to buy fuel and supplies for the ship and all that stuff. But we were keeping track of all that stuff. Dave had a little book. He kept all that stuff up. And I remember he had a problem with he was bought and Merchant Prince has all of the game mechanics to do that. So it's all like random tables and stuff that you can figure out. Space Truckers. Yeah, and he bought stuff and went to go sell it in the next system, and the price wasn't high enough. It was like actually a little lower because it was a bad roll. And so, but he had a stat, or I don't think it was a skill. I think it was like an advantage called influence. So he could literally go to because he was an archduke. He can go on media and say, "Oh yeah, our investment firms are suggesting a heavy buy on this commodity right now because there's been problems that we've been foreseeing in the future. Nothing's happening yet, but we think." And so he basically did a pump and dump to be able to make extra money off of stuff, so he could keep his ship afloat. So, and it's an interesting thing. It is sort of like bookkeepers and owlbears or whatever you want to call it.
It's the EVE Online role-playing game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eve definitely has elements of Traveler to it for sure, but and this was a unique Traveler game because for the most part people are trying to play sort of a hard science fiction game. It was a different spin, but it's all in there if that's the game you want to play.
Oh yeah, and as much or as little as you want.
Right. But I mean, as bookkeeping goes, how would you streamline a bookkeeping game? I mean, okay, let's say you want to play a Wastelands game, a Fallout game, where resources are scarce. How do you streamline that so it doesn't become bookkeeping and owlbears or accountants and owlbears?
I think you have to identify what is the scarce item and what is not.
Well, there's going to be everything scarce. It's the water, ammo, stim packs, radiation medicine. All of that stuff is scarce. But how do you streamline the?
So everyone's not sitting there with a spreadsheet
exactly
at every session.
Exactly.
Just don't give them enough where they can just keep track of it on a slip of paper.
Every day you're starving. We're just rolling to see if you wake up.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Stephen SoCal,
Yeah.
for the email. Next email is from Questions to be Asked. This is from Drell88. Greetings, hello, you magnificent bastards. Isaac from Texas here with a question concerning small party campaigns, as well as going the extra mile with your character. Too long did not read. Number 1. Is it wrong to have a smaller group of characters get more powerful faster in terms of loot, skills, and levels? TLDR 2. What are some moments where you as players have gone the extra mile outside of game for the sake of story, props, discussing plans with other players, etc.? Actually, act. I have a long and bumpy road of DMing for bad players, and seeing 2 groups fall apart in my hands. Was about ready to hang up my tabletop hat for good. I live in a small town, hours away from any place like Houston, where gaming is more prevalent, and in the general crack of Texas, where things like tabletop gaming are still considered the gateway to hell. So it came as a great surprise that I ran into a couple of friends of mine who just so happened to have had a similar string of bad experiences. After swapping sad tales of broken games, unfinished stories, we all decided to meet up one day and get a game started. The location of this meeting? A booth at the local McDonald's.
Like you do.
Currently, the DM is running 5th edition Horde of the Dragon Queen and is favoring the fun and interesting style of game playing rather than totality of the books. The party consists of me, a Dragonborn mercenary, and the DM's girlfriend playing a half-elf witch. So far, the game has been fun. We've been playing weekly for several months now, barring life issues and hurricanes.
Oh, this is a timely one.
Yes. Yeah, this is recent, like within the last couple of days. Oftentimes, after the session, we all chat about how to move forward, and I came across an interesting point of view. When playing for a very small group of people, 2 in our case, is it necessarily wrong to reward your players more? As of the writing of this email, we are 2 levels above the suggested level of encounters we are facing, and we still have moments where our lives flash before our eyes due to being swarmed by dragon cultists and overrun by giant spiders. Well, you are playing a game that definitely takes into account party size, and your party size is 2. So unless he's really scaling back the encounters,
that's where
you're
I was
likely going to flash before your eyes.
Well, that's where I was going with that too. It's like, yeah, you're playing with just 2 people, and if one of them's not really a healer, it could get tricky fast. So yeah, you better be overpowered.
Yeah, mercenary. So I'm assuming that's not a bard, so he doesn't have any healing ability. And a half-elf witch could, I guess. I don't know what.
I know there might be. I don't know, paladin mercenary, ranger mercenary. Yeah, who can say?
Life flash. Also, poison damage in the monster manual is broken all to hell.
Yeah.
When facing an assassin with a poisoned blade, taking an additional 76 damage when you aren't built like a tank is outrageous. But I digress. The game is fun. Our characters' stories are unfolding as we go, and I'm looking forward to each session in the future. Recently in-game, our Dragonborn has bonded with the half-elf, thinking of her as a sister and really breaking out of his introverted loner self. And this has promoted me to write up a last will and testament for my mercenary, entrusting all of his belongings to her should he die, as well as any of his valuables and holdings that lie in his hometown. And when I say write up the will, I actually got parchment paper, excuse me, and wrote out the whole thing. Got it sealed in an envelope, and I'm waiting for the potential doom so I can hand it to her across the table. That's awesome. Yeah, don't tell her about it. Just
that's cool.
You find this one.
Hopefully she's not listening.
Right. And yes, I know that looting the body is the first thing you do when a friend dies. That's how I expect her to find the letter. This is a first for me, and I've never been so invested with characters' relation before, and I'm having a blast doing it. Many thanks. Have a drink. Isaac from Texas. Drill 88 on the forums. P.S. Not applicable.
I like small parties myself. And I think it's a party of 2 people is actually a really cool idea. It's bold, and hopefully your GM is playing along with you, and they may have to, for example, level you more to make sure that you don't have a bad experience. Because, let's face it, D&D is really set up for a balanced group, or at least 4E was. 5E maybe is less so. But if you don't have a balanced group, things go sideways fast. And what I mean by balanced group, you have a range, you got to have a healer, you got to have a DPS, and you got to have a controller or whatever. I mean, it really gets that mechanically crunchy sometimes, and it pisses me off. And I really like to see people like, I want to play a group of 2 druids, and we're just going out and having a party and hanging out and doing stuff, and maybe we're going to be druidic investigators. I mean, that's cool to me. I hope that the GM will massage the system enough to allow you to explore those options. So yeah, overpower your characters if there's.
I don't think there's a problem with it. Especially. Yeah. Right. And what was his other question? With the stuff that you
is it going to make props? It's great to make props.
I love props.
Yeah.
As a player, I don't know if I ever have. Rob did in our other Traveler game, in Bill's Star Wars Traveler game. He sent us contracts by mail to each of our characters because he was basically going to be the boss of us because he was a retired admiral.
Again, Traveler, we were his employees.
Right. Until shit went sideways. And I'm pretty sure we all got fired.
Yeah.
We didn't actually finish the game. But I don't know. Have you ever done anything like that as a player?
I'm a big fan. I was actually wanted to address the DM side of this.
Oh, okay.
I started a game 4 or 5 years ago. It was a D&D campaign, and we ran it for 2.5 years. And every time I've started a new campaign, especially on this one, it's like, each of you make your own characters independently. Don't worry about the party balance. Don't worry that we have a striker and a cleric and all this. I, as the DM, will massage the system and the encounters to make sure that they aren't too lethal until you figure out a way of, you finally picked up a healing spell over here, or you bought just gaggles of healing potions. So the DM realizes if you're running this and you're running for your friends, it's your game.
Right.
The DM gets to make all the choices that he wants. If he wants to level them 5 levels above the encounter, go for it.
Exactly.
As I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, because the DM is the one that's running the game.
And bottom line is, are you having fun? I mean, obviously the encounters are still challenging. It's not like you're cakewalking through, which is fun sometimes too. But obviously you're still having. So it's not broken. Why problem make when no problem have you don't want to make?
And I guess on the prop things, in a tabletop it's one thing, but like obviously in LARP, we constantly people bring a prop. Can this be approved for that object?
Right.
Because they're physically walking around with it.
Right.
But if you're in a tabletop, it's all the better. You're like, even if someone painted their own mini, that's kind of the prop. That's what I think my guy looks like. That's my representation of this. So any work that players are willing to do to help add immersion always helps.
Well, I haven't presented it yet. Maybe it's a bit of a spoiler, but I've actually was going to write up stuff for the next vampire game, but I ended up finding like a handwriting font, and so I just typed it out. But I made a props for my character for the vampire game that at some point I'm going to pull out for another character. But I mean, it was just sort of copy, cut, and paste kind of stuff. But as a GM, it's something I like to do anyways, to give my character, and I learned it from Stu. Stu's very good at it. He will hand me a letter with, sealing wax on it. And now you get to open it up and you have to read it, or a newspaper with articles. And I don't see any reason why players can't do the same thing back and forth to each other. It's just another cool thing. I don't know how many players think that way, but I think GMs as players do. Right. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, because they're so used to creating that for the player.
Right.
They want to create it for the players that they're playing with.
Right. Yeah, I think if you don't put props in your games, you guys are missing out on a really cool thing. First of all, it's sort of like craft time, right? You get to sit around with scissors or whatever and buy parchment paper and come up with cool fonts and stuff. The other thing is your players go ape shit over it. All of my one shots, all of my con games have some sort of prop. My favorite one was my characters are in the Fey realm, and there were 2 doors, and the doors were broken. And they had to assemble these doors and figure out which door, and then stick them on a wall and figure out, because it's the Fey realm, which door opened up to where they were going. So I gave them an envelope with these little cut-up pieces, and they had to assemble it and figure out which door was which. It was really kind of cool. And all of a sudden, everybody became like 6-year-olds, and they're putting puzzle pieces together. And they loved it. And it was just this interactive prop that just sort of, it was like a salad in between meals. All of a sudden they were gaming, and now they're all putting these pieces together. Oh wait, I got one here. I think that goes over here, and then they were up into the game again. I think it brings everybody together. It's a fun thing to have happen. Is have props and stuff in your game. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've had a couple times where players, and I've done it myself, brought a deck of cards to one of the games. And there have been games for betting on boons. I do
betting on boons.
I do a couple of card tricks. So I did card tricks a couple of times for the players, just because my character was like, hey, so I'm an old Hollywood movie actor, and I'm always working on my skills, and I'm learning this extra sleight of hand piece, and it was it was card tricks, and I was able to pull out an ace at the end of it all, kind of thing. So yeah, little things like that are the extra. They're not just the I'm walking around. Those are great. And they're not required, but they're great when they happen.
I think you as LARPers probably end up dealing with people with more props than tabletop stuff.
Right.
Because people show up, I'm going to just generalize, but I'm saying like, every third person shows up with something other than just fangs and a trench coat that they want to play with. I found this parchment, or I've got information. New shit has come to light, man.
Information, man.
So like at the Sabbat game, since we allowed full prop interaction, there's a whole different experience when someone's upset with you and they just put an airsoft shotgun in your face. And being pulled into that moment where you're like...
those things hurt.
No. So the whole concept was everything was physically tested beforehand. There's no bullets. No one had pellets.
Okay, right.
So even if you shot, it was just a puff of air.
Okay.
Our lawyers say that we have to say that we checked everybody ahead of time.
No,
it's just a puff of air.
Even all the people who brought swords had like boffer weapons so they could like brandish.
Right.
But you were never allowed to touch another person with an object.
Okay.
Right, and we always leveled the moment you touch a person with that object, we never have
Props again.
Props again. You're going to ruin it
For everyone.
Sure, yeah.
But still, that experience though of cocking the airsoft and pointing at a person brought you into that moment.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
All it takes is one real fireball to ruin an entire LARP.
well, so like
then you have your deck save, so maybe it doesn't ruin everything.
Well, okay. Then you have boffer LARPs, where the whole concept is that you're going to be throwing your spell packets, you're going to be hitting people with stuff.
Right.
And that brings that visceral experience. If you're running down the hill in a full plate of armor, and you got your elf ears on, and you're there with your pole arm.
There's bean bags flying overhead.
Exactly.
As long as it's beanbags, it's the guy that brings the Roman candle that fucks with you. That, fireball, and it's actual fireballs coming at you.
Oh, what's that shotgun round? Is it called Dragon's Breath?
Yeah.
It's got magnesium in
Yeah.
it? Yeah. I watched a couple of YouTube videos because someone mentioned that in the
Magnesium or
forums.
is it thermite?
It's magnesium.
Okay.
Yeah, because I looked up how to load them. Because I load ammo, but I would never do that. But there was someone who had either bought it or custom loaded it, and was out in the Tules somewhere.
Was that the crazy Russian video?
No, it's here somewhere in the United States, and they lit a hillside on fire, and they're over there running. And they fired this thing, and it looked like a freaking fireball came out of the end
Magnesium
of that
is normally. I mean, there's all these old stories. I mean, I used to drive a Volkswagen, and old Volkswagens were magnesium cases.
Oh yeah.
And they used to, when a Volkswagen died, it was always a big tradition. You'd take it out to the desert and you pull the case out and you'd make a bonfire, and then eventually the magnesium would ignite, and you'd have this
You just
inferno.
scrape shavings, and those shavings will burn right away.
Well, yeah, that's what would happen and so you end up with this.
Who the hell decided I'm going to make an engine block out of
magnesium? The Germans,
the same people who made blimps out of hydrogen,
right? They love their explosions. Come on.
What could go wrong? It's very well engineered.
We engineered not to blow up, even though people think it should.
The temperature runs very high, but this magnesium is okay. We've got it within 10 degrees. What could go wrong?
But just even people walking with props, like you're saying, everyone comes up, everyone realizes all the Tremere have sticks.
Yeah.
And so you get to physically see that instead of some guy having a card.
All the gangrel have
stick.
claws.
Right.
And
do.
It's even become jokes, people who aren't even in Vampire Society, they're like, oh, we know Tremere because they have the sticks.
Right.
And do you know Tremere? No. It's guys with sticks.
and it makes it a little different than all right, I've got a 44 Magnum in a shoulder holster, and that's where my card is, and I have to keep telling everyone, forsooth, you see a bulge in my suit coat.
Right.
There's a vastly different feel than if I've got an airsoft gun in a shoulder holster, and you can tell what's that from across the room.
Right.
So it's easier just playing a gangrel. You're just walking around with your claws and your fangs, and everybody knows what you are, what you do, what you're.
Colored contact.
You're like
Wolverined out.
Yeah, pretty much all the time.
I actually put on airsoft armor underneath shirts for I'm wearing a flak vest, so I feel the restraint.
You guys are all method actors. We're not laughing at you. It is. This whole LARP thing is so interesting to me because it didn't. Back in the day when I was doing this around college and stuff, it was sort of an offspring of FCA. There wasn't the word LARP. It was just sort of, a stress release or whatever. They called it living history, I guess, or what was the Society of Creative Anachronism? They had another name for it and such, but it somehow evolved suddenly rules got in, and I don't know when that happened and such, but it became
Well, Steve Jackson
with Assassin.
released Assassin. I was in high school when that came out.
Me too.
And we played that and got in a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I think they referred to that as a live-action role-playing game.
Uh-huh.
I believe that in the original rules that's what it said. But that was that's the only LARP I ever played.
Do you guys know? I'm going to ask you because you represent all the LARPers I know, and you speak with authority. Do you know when the rule set got dropped in and when LARPing stopped being
A bunch of hippies.
with swords bopping on each other to an actual game?
Okay, if you don't consider SCA LARPing, because there is rules, there is
There
how
are
you-
now.
Well, I mean,
no, okay, but
but
even
evolved
original,
slowly.
That's
yeah.
more like sparring stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, there's not.
There's no game books released in editions and such. Well, maybe there are now.
Okay, but they have society. They have like, this is a kingdom, and my kingdom represents these concepts.
Yes.
And these are my banners, and these are
Right.
my, and I have
And these
to,
are the rules when you're in combat. You can't
Right.
do this, can't below
Exactly.
this. If you do this, you're dead.
Okay.
And there's referees walking around going, "No, you're dead. No, you're dead. Oh, he's only wounded." Yeah.
right. Okay.
At certain times.
Yes.
When there's
Right.
battles going on. Right?
Yes.
Right. And then you have, like, let's say Civil War recreationists, and they have different kind of rules of what they're allowed to do and what they're not
Right.
allowed to do. But
But the
if you-
Confederates always lose.
Depends on the battle.
so if you take out like recreationist and you take out SCA, then you're getting very close to like the Steve Jackson, and you're getting close to where you begin to have the starting of LARP in like in the early 90s, because almost as soon as Vampire came out, the second edition, there was a LARP book, and they even talk about LARP in the first edition.
So White Wolf basically dropped a book that said, "This is how you do this live."
Yes.
It wasn't a hack that people came up with. It
No,
was something
it-
that White Wolf.
The original one was a box that actually had plastic vampire fangs and a blood packet, and it was
I
two books, and
did
the
not know
mechanic
that.
was just atrocious.
Now, is that
And
the original Vampire book, or is that a LARP product?
They made a LARP product for the vampire book right after second edition came out,
Okay.
and so but first and second edition were only like 2 years.
Right.
So then they realized people actually enjoyed it, and so then they made actually a book where the mechanic was solid, and then that mechanic...
No teeth?
No teeth, just a book.
Okay.
Then that mechanic was pretty much solid with a few revisions for about 10 years, until all the White Wolf then being sold to CCP, and then all that other bit. And then with the rise of Onyx Path and the rise of like all of that coming back into play, they've essentially created a new mechanic for the new era, essentially.
I was not aware that White Wolf did that. It almost sounds like a, I don't want to say a joke, but it almost sounds like a like a novelty thing that they released. Like remember when Think Geek made their it was their April Fool's joke? They had a Jawa sleep or a Tauntaun sleeping bag.
Then it became,
Right.
And everybody said, "No, man, this is an April Fool's joke." But they got so many orders for it, they put it in production.
I think because Vampire is also this major change in role-playing where I'm not trying to beat something, I'm not trying to do that. It is the social complete connection. It is, I am a villain, I'm fighting against players. If I'm fighting against players, it's hard to do that at a table. How do we perpetuate the next point?
And you really brought up the key point there, which is I think the LARP really focuses on social. It really brings that home because you're actually having to go have a conversation
Exactly.
with somebody socially. It's not an abstraction where you're playing across a room from each other. Well, I say this and I say that, and let's roll to see if I influence them. At this point, you're actually having to have a conversation,
Right.
to a certain extent, and that's a different level. It takes you to a different level than most role-playing games do.
Right, and like 4th edition D&D, you could roll a skill check for diplomacy, you get a 32, okay, that beats the DC, poof. And I never had to say a word and
Right.
get the information.
And many games are played like that.
Right. Doing it as a LARP where it's like, I in my character as Marcus, am trying to get you to tell me this information, and I suspect maybe you know, but I don't really know, so I'm going to drop a couple of hints here and there to see if you bite and respond with something, so that I can go, aha, you do know!
Now, in cases like that, would I bring a referee over? It's like, I want to interrogate this person. Can you watch this and make sure you follow rules?
If you had...
Because otherwise it turns into his word against yours. I didn't say anything. Yeah, you did. No, you didn't. Yeah, you did. No, you didn't.
Well, there can absolutely be an element of that, and like elders have certain social statuses where you have to have social statuses to tell me that I'm lying. So if you're a neonate and I as an elder say, "Oh, you told me that you were going to give me $1 million," that neonate says, "No, I never said that." It's like, I'm an elder. You just called me a liar. You now have negative status.
Oh, that's a headache. Yeah.
There are pieces like that. That's an oversimplification, but
Oh no, I get it. I get it.
Now, in the game, are there player characters? Is there that broad of a disparity in generation?
Yes.
There is. Is that all just bought up? Like, I'm going to buy a ton of generation?
So the classic problem is if you buy a lot of generation, you're incredibly powerful in the status and the political game, but it's very expensive for you to buy powers and traits. If you're young, things are very easy and quick for you to buy, so they can send you off to go to the fight. Because you're like the servants and you're like that. But if you aren't socially powerful.
Okay.
Yeah. They actually have a piece.
So it's balanced in such a way that if you are a lower generation, it costs more to buy. Okay.
Yeah. It's like neonates, which are the guys that just have 1 dot gen in the current edition. Like, background is only 1 XP per the dot level. So to buy level 5 background of influence, it only costs you 5 XP for that level. But if you are an elder that's got 5 dots in gen, it costs you 10 XP to buy that level. But you can buy, maybe level 6 or a 6th or 7th dot
Special
that
methods.
neonates could never buy.
Okay.
So you can potentially get more powerful, but it's going to cost you more.
And somewhere else you're paying for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a fair equality. There are some issues with every game system.
Right.
But there is a basic aspect. If you took a lot of points in generation, you're going to be socially more powerful than someone who didn't.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have a bigger blood pool. If there is ever an issue, you can use your powers more often because you're not the neonate that's rationing out his 10 points of blood over the whole night. You've got 30 or 40 to play around with over the course of 4 hours. You blow telepathy till your mind blows up, and you'll still be fine on blood.
Okay.
I was thinking about another early LARP was Cthulhu. Had a very early LARP.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I heard there was a Call of Cthulhu LARP somewhere. I don't know if it was this con or maybe it's going to be.
There was one at this con.
There was. See, there was going to be a LARP 101. So I don't know who was going to run it at the last Strategicon at Gateway, and it fell through at the last minute.
Cthulhu would make a wonderful LARP in a hotel. I mean, it would basically be like those dinner murder mystery things, right? But you could go from room to room, and there'd be clues or scenes set up, right, that you would interact with, which would be really cool.
Oh yeah.
This room there's candlelight and whatever, and a dead body, and in this room there's pentagram on the. I mean, it'd be neat. It'd be really neat.
I think it'd also be great to do it at a house, and you have people who they don't know are playing be like the monsters at the woods.
Oh yeah.
And then you text them, okay, they're ready to walk out now, and then you gotta do that.
That would be fantastic.
Check your weapons at the door, please.
Okay, it looks like I forgot to put the last email.
Oh.
So I'm going to read it off my computer.
Okay.
Because I was distracted. Hello again, ladies and gentle doucherinos. Drink. I would like now. I wanted to follow up on my last email about leniency by answering some questions you had to ask. Observation of the game, a horror story. Last time I was not able to add as much detail to my letter as I was writing it on his phone. After listening, I wanted to give the answers to some of the ideas you threw out. I do not believe that I'm a Monty Hall GM. That's the other place I saw it spelled the other way. And have been known to be a little stingy with loot and almost always roll out in the open instead of behind a screen. But I think you may hit upon the nail on the head when you talked about player turned GM may not have felt threatened or completely engaged in the fights we have had as a group. He's playing a tanky paladin / cleric with a high armor class and healing for days, whereas the rest of the group are lightly armored and squishy. Also, they have mostly fought more animalistic creatures, focused more on their own survival rather than trying to defeat the players. So I suspect that may be where his feelings are stemming from. Now for the gaming nightmare. It's been going on for a bit long, so go ahead and drink again.
It's not that long.
I will refrain.
You okay?
Yeah, asthma. I don't have my inhaler on me. We have a friend who, despite running a terrible game, is still a friend.
Good
That
on
must have
you.
been a bad game.
Good on you guys.
Though we put a boycott on his DM. Let's call him Phil.
Also good on you guys.
Phil offered to run a game for us, and I, being the primary GM of the group, happily took up the other to actually get to play. The first big problem was that we really didn't play any actual game. Phil used to run 2nd edition D&D, but did not have the books and played from memory. The rest of us, having never played 2nd edition, had no way of learning or referencing anything. Phil would just tell us how things worked. And usually there was no continuity between sessions. A lot of rules would change, and he would get mad at us for doing something the way he told us to do it in the past. Eventually, I got a used rule book hoping it would add some stability, but Phil mostly ignored it. Phil also had a very strict sense of how fantasy tropes should be played and would punish players for not following his ideas.
It's wandering damage. we had an email years ago about somebody that they quite literally wandered off of his railroad tracks, but hit them with wandering damage. If you nope, you take a point 1d6 of damage. Well, no, you take another d6 of damage. Okay, I'll go back to the trail. All right. Wandering damage.
And would punish players for not following his ideas. Thieves should steal everything that isn't nailed it down. Dwarves had to be gruff, greedy, hard-drinking, elf haters, etc. Even docking...
Who doesn't hate elves?
Well, yeah. Even docking experience points when he felt our characters broke the mold too much. Ooh. Phil also had a terrible tendency to play favorites with players. Some players would get great rewards and boons if he liked the player, while players he didn't like were often unfairly chastised.
Your dwarf liked elves. I'm going to dock you for that. Yeah.
While all of this was irritating, the first wake-up call that led us to decide that no game was better than bad gaming was when we found a treasure chest after an adventure. Phil rolled to see what kind of loot was in it, then let us try to open it. It was locked, and our thief was unable to pick it. So we were left to decide how to open it, and considering just breaking the chest, just a mundane wooden chest, Phil sternly told us that if we broke it, some of the things inside would get destroyed, which was reasonable-ish. So we as a group, we spent some time trying to figure out what to do, asking him questions, searching, and the thief trying to get another chance at a lock pick, to pick the lock. Phil began to get flustered over all of this and eventually yelled at us that since we wouldn't make up our minds and it was taking too long, the chest was empty and we would get nothing.
You get nothing, not a zilch. It's very Willy Wonka.
Thanks for reading my emails. Keep up the podcast, and sorry about the length of the email, Wes. P.S. The game ended on that note. Big shock. And we decided to take several month long break from gaming with Phil after that.
Right, so you wouldn't kill him.
Then we did try to pick it up back again with more disastrous results that I'll save for another email.
Yeah. I want to hear more about Phil.
Wow.
I like the horror stories.
This is actually in the same vein as the email I wrote to you guys a couple years ago that you read. It is painful when, especially it's a friend, you like them, but just for whatever reason, they game and it's their story, they're telling it, they're forcing you to play. I've always tried to take much more of I'm facilitating you guys walking through a story.
Right.
And if you want to sandbox it and go over there today and go over there tomorrow, that's all your call. And I have the encounter over there or the encounter over there where you might walk that way, but you still get the encounter from over here because that's the one I actually prepped. You just get a different story with the mechanic.
Exactly, right.
I remember your email intimately, but do you want to remind the listeners what advice we gave you and how well it worked?
We read it 9 months later after he'd sent it, so it was irrelevant by then.
Yeah. It was a case of we had a DM. He was the only DM in the group for a while. And this was when I was just playing D&D for the first time ever, like 5-6 years ago, first really getting into it. And he was super tactical with all of his monsters. They knew the perfect positions to always be in to get the optimal attacks. When players were doing things that were less than optimal in combat, he would start correcting them and saying, "No, you need to go over here."
I do remember now. All of it, because of course, as a GM, he knew exactly what the terrain was and everything, and you guys were constantly outsmarted every time.
Right. And it just became slog after slog after slog. Now, granted, that 4E happened a lot that way. And we kind of took a break. We had another guy come in. He wanted DM. He was very, very story orientated as opposed to combat. I started running a campaign. The bad DM played in a couple of those other ones. We really felt that he began to learn it, take a feel for it. When 5E came out, he wanted to start a 5E campaign. We're like, hey, great, we'll give you another shot. the second game, I try to maneuver and get a little information and run a couple of the dice games. He says, all right, the bad guys figure out what you're doing. They beat you up, take all your stuff. And he said, all your stuff. So armor, sword, cash, the town we just looted a while back, all of the money was gone. And I didn't get a roll. I didn't get insight to see if maybe they're catching on and you got to get out of there. Nothing. He almost broke the group the first time.
Yeah.
And the second time it's like, all right, we're just never going to play with you as the DM.
Bye. Yeah.
But we tried the conversations. We tried to work with them. It's a problem.
It sounds like it. And
I believe the advice you guys gave is sometimes you have to put on your big boy pants
and
have a conversation.
And it didn't work.
If they don't like the conversation, now it sounds like they had a conversation. They took a few months off. They came back. They tried to give them another shot. That's all well and good. If they failed the second or third time around, they're still doing the same things. It means they haven't learned. They don't have a good group mentality.
It's an intrinsic character flaw. At that point, they cannot run games without being selfish douchebags. They shouldn't really GM, and if they do GM, they need to GM for other selfish douchebags. I mean, I've run into min-maxers before, and they like to play min-maxing games, and they hang out with other min-maxers, and they have a great time together doing that. They just have to find like-minded people that like that kind of thing, but it's hard.
Well, also, there needs to be a contract between the storyteller and the player of, is this going to be a sense of victory or is this going to be a sense of defeat? There's plenty of games where you should not necessarily have a consistent aspect. You're winning well.
I don't sign contracts when I start a game. It's sometimes it takes a long time to figure out. Oftentimes you're about, I don't know, a month, 2 months in, 6 sessions in before you go, this guy's an asshole. Holy shit, what do I do now? How do I get out of this? Mm-hmm. Or I don't like these other players. Oftentimes you don't realize what you're in for until it's too late. And it's always nice to say, well, there should be a social contract, but at that point you're like, they don't know, I didn't know, uh-oh.
And there does come a point, like they made it in the email, or they stated in the email, sometimes you reach a point where no game is better than a bad game.
Right.
And if you end up not liking the players and the DM's a douchebag, sometimes you just say, hey guys, I've enjoyed meeting you, I'm going to take my dice and go somewhere else. I don't want to ruin the game for everyone else.
Yes, right.
I'm not taking everybody's dice. I'm just taking my dice.
My wife's going to have a baby. I need to be home more often. Yeah, whatever, and take the high road. Yeah, Kimmy's rule 1, which is don't game with assholes. But I think you can be more broadly generated. It's just don't play with bad gamers, or don't play in a game you don't like. I mean, unless you're stuck in northern Nebraska and that's the only game you can find within 150 miles of where you live. But even then, I mean, is it worth it? So online options.
I'll kind of expand that though. Like in a group of 50 people, not everyone's going to be good.
Yes.
So there has to be a greater sense of leniency of, I know that not every player is going to be excellent at role-playing and never metagaming and understanding their rules and caring about other people's feelings.
Right, but, okay, finish.
But as long as there is a certain kind of social contract that people realize that the staff are not directly trying to ruin you, that yes, you are not going to succeed all the time, but we are trying to make you have a pleasant experience, and that there can be communication, it works. But if you go, I had a bad experience with that person made me feel terrible, if you don't see it as the entire event, because especially at a LARP, everyone's saying their own story. There's not a staffer standing there every single time saying this is what's occurring.
Sure.
And even still, a staffer at that moment with 50 things in their head while they're going through all that stuff, they might make a mistake. And in that mistake, they might think it was against them as a person instead of, you know what, I haven't seen Animalism 4 in like 2 years. I'm sorry I ran Animalism 4 wrong.
Right.
And it's very hard to keep, like, you keep some of the people happy all the time.
Right.
You can't keep everybody happy all the time.
And when you're in a player in a group of 50 and there's a person you don't like, you can just avoid them a little bit because there are 49 other people, or if you're one of the 50, there's 48 other people that you can play with and role play with. So it's just hey, I'm not interested in role playing with that particular person. You can go off and you can still have RP with everyone else.
And I can see in a LARP the beauty of that because when you're at a tabletop game, I've been this guy. I've been a story-driven guy. I wanted to explore backstories. I want to explore my character, and other people are like, they just want to kill stuff and move on. And that their fun in the game is min-maxing, getting experience, and making their character, optimizing their character. And my fun in the story is exploring backstories and working out the tensions between the group. And their fun and my fun don't match up.
Right. They're
like, stop talking to my experience points. So I want to kill it so I can get level up, right? And in a LARP with 50 people, they're like, I see. You want to, okay, I'm going to go over here and talk to these guys because we have a much more, and so you can separate off, the people can self, I don't know, I want to say self-medicate, but they can self-optimize. They can find the groups and they continue on the stories with the people they want to play with. That's not always the case in a tabletop game where you're stuck at a table, and you may realize too late that the players you're playing with have completely different values than what you want. Their fun is different than your fun.
So, but like, here's a great example with the staff. You can't necessarily avoid the staff.
No.
And I think of the three people, every single one of us has different perspectives of what we're trying to portray.
Yeah.
And it becomes kind of, some people might feel they're picked on by a certain staffer who really wants to tell a certain story to that person. And they have to get the communication from the person that, no, I don't want to go down that angle. I want to do something different.
Right.
And you have to kind of maintain that level of communication. And if you're at a table just with 4 people, if they can't be able to tell the storyteller, this is kind of what I'm looking for in a game, are we going to this angle or do I find something else to do? Mm. There has to be communication more than just, let's roll dice and here's the story.
Mm-hmm. Right. Or at least, the way I usually play is the GM is to pick up these clues, because a lot of people aren't going to stop the game and go, I'm not having fun because my character isn't being min-maxed enough. That's a conversation I don't think I've ever heard happen, at least at the table.
Right, but when you pitch the game,
you might get emails after the game. I'm not having fun. This guy's picking on me. Or why are we spending so much time talking? We need to do more combat or stuff like that.
Right, but okay, like when you're pitching, let's say we're going to play a Traveler's game, and you're saying whatever we're kind of having, the kind of main goals, we're going to be acquiring stuff, and we're going to be going against this type of thing. They're getting the pitch of what they're expecting. Yeah. If you're running a D&D game, you're like, oh, well, we're going to play this module, and we're going to fight these guys, we're going to try to get to the end of it and survive. They have a concept of where they're going. That pitch is your contract. You're handing it out to them. You're saying, this is what we're playing. Very rarely do people walk into the room, and you're like, here's your sheet, have a good time. That's like a con moment.
No, that's the way we play.
That's the way we play.
We roll up with characters. Like Stu said, roll up your vampire characters. I have no idea what. I barely play
That's because I don't know what kind of game I was going to run until I saw what kind of characters got made.
Right, okay, but you saw the characters.
I had like a very kind of vague idea for a story.
Right, but you'd be like, okay, it's going to be kind of a social construct kind of thing versus a monster kind of thing.
Those words never came out of his mouth.
No.
Never told us.
It's first White Wolf title I'd ever run.
L5R, same thing.
I don't know, we'll see.
He never once explained to us what type of characters or what type of game we were playing.
Well, I made the characters for L5R because it was only going to be a one-shot. Because I made pre-gens for him, and I said, I have a little adventure, here's the pre-gens, let's run it. That game ran for, I don't know.
So we as players make these incredible decisions. Stu has some ideas, and he throws it at us, and all of a sudden this game evolves, and Stu's adapting to what we're doing. It's a feedback loop. But never once do you tell us what your end.
That's not true. In Bloodblade and Tusk, you guys knew what the gist of the adventure was. It's kind of dark medieval fantasy. There's the Catholic Church, because basically what happens is sometime around 1000 AD, orcs just show up in France and take over France. So the Crusades never happened. The Normandy invasion never happens. None of that stuff. And there is an Inquisition. Orcs brought magic when they showed up. There had already been secret magic societies amongst humans before.
The Druids.
Nobody knows
right
who they were.
But yeah, and I said, this is going to be kind of a grim game. This is going to try to say it's giving a huge what if to the history, but it's going to try to be true to what might have happened in that sort of a situation. So there's a lot of religious aspects to it, and there's a lot of sort of bigotry aspects to it with regards to the orcs because they're here, and the official church doctrine says that they're demons walking amongst us. So, like, right off the bat, there's all kinds of tension and stuff.
But that's different than story. You've given me background.
Yeah, but like themes. Theme. It's just like Vampire. It is a social jihad kind of concept game. You're not just going to be running around killing people all day long.
Well, no, because there's two ways to play Vampire. You can play it as Underworld, Or you can play it as...
You can play superheroes who drink blood.
Right. And both are valid, and both are according to the rule set, but it really depends on the type of game you want to play. I mean... And sometimes those two players end up in the same game together. Right?
and it's certainly one place in a LARP when you're running 50-odd people. You've got to have themes, and people have to know what they're walking into it. At a tabletop, I feel, especially like a D&D game, a truly great DM can look at, I have 5 players that want the hack and slash, that want to just be blenders that walk into the room, and I got one guy that wants to talk about everything. And I'm going to pay extra attention to that guy so they get story, and I'm going to throw crazy monsters at these other guys.
Right.
And
try to balance it so that everyone's going to have a good time.
Right. And the great DMs are listening to what the players want, and they have their idea. The players are putting out ideas, and they're having a conversation. Yeah. And a great DM can do that.
Yes, and the great DM has to be able to do that. And you have to wear a lot of different hats. Vampire and with L5R and a couple, it's also clan oriented too. You know, with L5R if you have a scorpion show up, or in Vampire if you have a gangrel show up, their skill set is really based around a couple of things. They're not really great negotiators or great talkers. They're really only good at a couple of things, and that's mostly killing stuff and apologizing later if they get an apology. And they don't even get along with each other. So
you could build a social game.
You absolutely you can, but they're not really that way. If you read the books, they're but yes, you can tweak them.
One of their basic game clans is all social roles.
Yes. But same with L5R. You can make a social scorpion. You can make they're undercovers. It's spies.
Well, they're always in L5R. Every clan has a social aspect.
Yeah,
they're just the approach to it is just different.
So, it's as a GM. I don't know. Stu's had this problem. He's got 2 gangrels, a Ventru, and a Toreador. And he has to. There is the Toreador, but there's also a Toreador, and they have to all try to get along, right? And everybody's at cross purposes because the Gangrel doesn't want to do anything; he just wants to be left alone. The Venture wants to take over everything. The Toreador just wants to make shiny stuff. And
my question is: do they have to get along?
Well, no. Well, okay. There we throw it back to you guys. What do you do when they don't all get along because they're just playing their characters?
But that's Vampire.
The question then:
don't play Vampire.
The question then I feel is it the characters not getting along or the players not getting along?
It's the characters.
Sure. If it's the characters, that can lead to a lot of fun games. And if the players are enjoying the fact that they get to petty bicker about this person behind their back, that's great. That's a good game. If it's the players not getting along, even if you're all Toreadors and you're going to art museums every game, and all of your Toreadors love each other. If the players don't like each other, you're still going to have a bad game.
That's true.
Right.
Like, I've ran games where everyone is completely diversely different clans. You can do everything from it's an Archon campaign where you're all being ordered by just to try to go solve some missions. If you're in an individual city, you can just make a player versus environment issue. You're like, okay, well, your Toreador stuff is being attacked by a group of...
City gangrels.
City gangrels. They're Sabbat aggressing against it. You have to make deals with the other players at the table to help defend your land.
What do you do?
And everyone, especially in Vampire, everyone is kind of, like you said, locked down in their skill choice. You can make an opponent that only certain players can succeed at and have them attack those who can't.
And that's a luxury, I think, with LARPs. That's really neat. Because within Tabletop, everybody has to be involved. It's like, well, I'm going to make a real fighty thing for the gangrel, but everybody else is going to be completely outclassed. Or I'm going to make a real social character, and then the gangrel walks up and kills them, right? Or whatever.
The classic problem actually with Vampire in that scenario is social's overpowered.
Yes,
there's
going
to be a combat.
Order people to walk.
I'm a Toreador. I entrance the bad guys
and have him walk through fire. Yeah, and have him tell me everything he knows. Yeah.
Like there was a whole conversation in one of the videos we were having of just going through every discipline. Where like dominate's the most powerful discipline because it's the only discipline that takes away agency.
Right.
And you could be the greatest combat person on earth, and you can kill a guy in 2 turns, but I can have that guy kill you.
All he has to do is say stop.
Yeah.
And go out in the sun.
So, Vampire is best when it is either players against each other at a larger session or players against environment, because you got to get everyone on the same page.
Yeah. Right. Well, and therein wise, you got to get everybody on the same page. And I guess there's a lot of different ways to get there.
Yeah.
No. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Had a lot of fun.
Someone wanted some soundboard. Hold on.
Why
Only-
problem make when you no problem have you don't want to make?
That's a quote from Troll Hunter. And if you guys haven't seen Troll Hunter, it's a Norwegian.
I have seen Troll
Everybody
Hunter.
needs to watch Troll Hunter.
It's fantastic. Have you
It's
seen Troll Hunter?
I've
fantastic.
seen Troll
Put it on your Netflix. You can watch on Netflix. It's fantastic. It is not what you think.
No, it's very good.
You hear the word Troll Hunter, you think, yeah, it's awesome. It's one of my favorite movies.
I just started. I got Showtime through Hulu, and I just started. I watched the most recent season of Homeland, which is I love that show.
Yeah.
Claire Danes.
Mandy
Loved
Patinkin.
it.
Do you know it was Obama's favorite show?
Huh?
It was Obama's favorite
Was it
TV
really?
show. Yeah.
But I just started watching a show called I'm Dying Up Here.
Oh yeah.
Oh
About
my
comedians.
god, that's awesome!
Yeah.
It's the best thing I've seen since like Glow. Did you see Glow on Netflix?
I did see Chloe.
Billions on Showtime. It's also
Haven't
very
watched
good.
that yet.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
particularly good for vampire games because it
Oh,
actually
really?
it shows you the nature of someone with resources 5 and someone with influence 5 fighting. And that guy doesn't have a lot of money, but he's the a federal DA for the entire New York.
Okay.
And then the other guy is a hedge fund manager, and it's them having conflicts and fighting
Which
each other.
one plays which?
Paul Giamatti
Giamatti.
plays the attorney.
Okay, all right,
It's awesome.
awesome. All right, I'm gonna call it.
Okay.
Cool.
Go play. There we go. Yes.
Yes, it is the Soviet national anthem.
Thank you for joining us for season 20, episode 5 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Patrick.
My name is Michael, if I can say that.
And thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it.
It's been tons of fun.
And we'll see you, of course, at Orcon 2018.
Yes.
Excellent.
Now with 50% more orcs.
Yes. February 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. Tomorrow or Sunday, we're playing Vampire Masquerade Motosin 4 p.m. streaming live here. And then on Monday, is it Bloodblade and Tusk?
I believe it is. The
Bloodblade and
11th,
Tusk
right?
on Mondays. Move to Mondays, 8 to 10.
Adjust your calendars or check ours out.
That's it. Thank you very much. Oh, Dead Rain starts next Sunday.
Dead Rain is what?
Dead Rain is the zombie survival game sponsored by Palladium Books.
Run by whom?
Me and Dave.
Excellent.
Yes. Thank you very much. We'll leave the song.
I'd rather have lager than lime.
And
I'll take a strong stout over stride. I'd prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail. So bring me lager for life.
I'd rather have whiskey than wealth. For riches bring thieves of great stealth. The wealthy drink wine and on pheasant they dine. But give me a keg and a fine turkey leg, and I'll eat, drink, and toast to your health.
I'd rather have lager than lime. I'll take a strong stout over stride. I'd prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail. So bring me lager for life.
I'd rather have beer than have fame, for drinking's a much safer game. Though bravery's a virtue that warfare can urge you, let other men fight while I drink every night and gain a less sober acclaim.
I'd rather have lager than lime. I'll take a strong stout over stride. I'd prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail. So bring me lager for life.
I'll take good ale over girls. They titter and play with their curls. Young women complain and cause me great pain. But with ale as my mate, I'll thank God for my fate while I give her a necklace of pearls.
I'd rather have lager than lime. I'll take a strong stout over stride. I'd prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail. So bring me lager for life. I'd rather have lager than life. I'll take a strong stout over strife. I'd prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail. So bring me lager for life. I'd rather have lager than life. I'll take a strong stout over strife. I'd prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.